Good day and welcome to Insight, another attempt to get some insight into a matter that's controversial. It's been controversial for a very long time. Some of you will know it as pro-life or as personal choice. But we are going to hear from one side of the argument today. And we've invited, and they have accepted, Father Hulang, and we have invited Sister Joanne, who are here. So we're properly blessed this morning. Speak to me, Father Hulang, if you may, as to what is the latest trigger for all of this discussion and conversation? What's going on with that? I just came from Mars. Tell me what's going on.
There's a push in Parliament towards legislating the abortion as being fine. And 11 years ago, we had a push, and it proved at that time, thanks be to God, that pro-life made it very, very clear that Jamaica, at that time, some 80% of the population had the definite sense that this is not good for the nation. It's not good for people personally, and it's not good for the nation. And so that was a cause of celebration. However, there are voices that are coming forward, and big money from people like the United Nations, European Union, World Bank, USAID, that is funding through Planned Parenthood and other agencies. They realize that Jamaica, for instance, is a country that is struggling. It's a difficult country. It's going through all kinds of challenges. And therefore, this is the time to hit, you know. But the Planned Parenthood, for instance, has $1.5 billion that they have collected, and it's for the cause of abortion, and also other Planned Parenthood methods.
Was this triggered from the motion that was brought by the Member of Parliament from West Rural St. Andrew?
Right. There was an incident she knew in her constituency, and she brought it to the fore. But I think that that's not the cause. That's more a way of illustrating by example that there are people who have suffered because of the fact that there was a botched abortion attempt. And therefore, from that, as a primary incident, a universal law is being called for. No woman should ever suffer that, you know, so that it creates great trauma and so forth.
Have you been to Parliament? Have they heard from you? Are you a part of a discussion in a formal way?
Well, I've been encouraged by a number of people that I should submit to Parliament, and I'm thinking very seriously about it. It's a bit late. But recently we went to the to Parliament after we had left the Hall Convention Center. We went up, and a few people came up to me, reporters, and asked me what was my opinion on the whole matter. And at that time I did say, and I do repeat, I would prefer to die than to see our country go what is called pro-abortion, because I do believe it will be part of the death culture.
Death culture?
Yes.
Let me press you on that. What is a death culture?
The death culture was iterated by Pope John Paul, that great Pope during his time in the 80s, 90s. He says, look at this. The death culture is upon us. That is the destruction of life. And this will be, he said, once you begin to look into matters like abortion, once you begin to look into things like suicide by choice, once you begin to look at matters like euthanasia,
mercy killing,
and mercy killing and so forth, that would be the end of the value of life. And you're going to have war upon war upon war. And Mother Teresa herself said that, giving her famous address at the time of graduation at Harvard University. She said that war and abortion are connected together. The lack of value of life, human life, and the snuffing out of people.
Sister Joan,
Yes.
we move from Mother Teresa to Sister Joan. The challenge that a young lady would have who finds herself pregnant, what is it that you would tell her why she shouldn't have an abortion?
Well, I would tell her that she shouldn't have an abortion because it is a human life that she's taken. It's a human life that God has given to her. No matter what the circumstances are, that child did not ask to be conceived, but he or she was conceived. So they too have to have a chance to follow in some kind of life. What would happen if her mother decided that for whatever reason she should not be born? And then what would happen if the mother of the mother decided? Nobody would be here. So we would be, just snuffing out life. What we could do, if she needed a place to stay, she can come and stay with us. I find that here in Jamaica, a lot of the young women that get pregnant, they're looking for a little bit of love and care. For whatever reason, they don't get it within their own household. So that's what they're looking for. And they think that laying down with a man or a boy is going to give them this. And then they discover that the boy or the man walks away, and then once again, they're left on their own, pregnant. So they're looking for a little bit of love. And that's where we come into play.
Yes.
We have a home, Holy Innocent, where they can come to us. Holy Innocent.
Holy Innocent.
Yes.
Okay.
After the first martyrs.
Yes. Where is this?
The first martyrs, the babies that were killed when Herod was looking for baby Jesus.
Okay.
And he killed the firstborn boys. So that's how we named it Holy Innocent. Yes.
Okay.
All the innocent babies that were
Where is
killed.
that
at time.
located?
Hero Circle.
Here, sir.
You can't miss us. We're the big green building right on Hero Circle, across the street from Total Gas Station.
Okay.
It's either the Total Gas Station or us.
That's right.
And so they can come to us, and we take care of them, and we love them, and we care for them. And we meet all their needs. Their physical needs, their spiritual needs, even their finance needs, because they don't have to worry about any kind of buying of anything. We take care of that also. They need this, they need to go to the doctor. We drive them to the doctor, we drive them to their clinics. They need medication, we find the medication for them. They need love, we love them. They need guidance, we guide them. Whatever they need, they have with us. And then when they have their baby, we take care of them also. They have their baby, they come back to us, depending on how much time they need to stay with us until they get strong. Then they go out. If they can't take care of their baby, or they decide that they want to give their baby up for adoption, they leave the baby with us, and we go through the proper methods of adopting that baby out. But I tell you, since we've been conceived, in 2012 was our first mother that we took in. Every mother that we have seen, and it's over 500 mothers, have gone through our center, of all ages, all denominations, all religious. Every mother has kept her baby. They may come to us and say, you know what, sister, I don't want my baby. I don't want my baby. But I say to them, okay, let's not worry about that right now. Let's just first get you, settled in and this and that. And then once you have the baby.
So they get to live there?
Yes, they live with us. They can come at any stage of their pregnancy. We don't say, oh no, you can't do it, no, any stage of their pregnancy, and they live with us.
the, a father who long speak of the big bucks coming through certain organizations. So how are you funded?
By the grace of God.
By the grace of God.
Oh,
Which
yes.
bank is that?
Well, that's God Bank. It's really amazing. Let me tell you, it's really amazing how God works. I think it was 2 years after we started, we were running out of baby diapers.
Okay.
And it was like, my gosh, Lord, we have a lot of babies. And the diaper is, the number of diapers we're getting is very
It's, multiple use.
And all of a sudden, we had a container from one of the other islands come in full of diapers for us. He provided. He provided. We have no formula. We pray, and I know that some people say, oh, foolishness. No, the power of prayer, and he listens because this is something he wants. Yes. Not through us, because everything we do free of charge. We do for the love of God.
Yes.
So we charge nobody nothing. Sometimes somebody says, how much, sister? Say Hail Mary for me. Say a prayer for me. And that'll be your cost. That'll be your charge from me to you. But he provides us by sending us good people to help us,
Yes.
either from local people or from overseas. And once they come and they see what we do, they can't turn away anymore. Sister, okay, when I go back, I'll find out how I can get either, monetary funds to you to help you buy what you need, or if a container comes in, they fill the container up for us. So God does provide.
Now, when I come back, I'm going to ask the question then, is she encouraging this by giving free place, slave, free place to have your baby? We'll be right back on Insight. With the issue of abortion and protecting and taking care of those who decide not to go that route. But we'll come back to the question of your right to make your own decisions. We left you when you spoke of, and I challenged you, that could you be aiding and abetting all of this kind of promiscuity, if you may, by suggesting that, listen, you have a place to stay, go do what you have to do. I'll never kick you out. What about that responsibility?
No, because while they stay with us, being either young or old, we do counsel them. We do counsel them that the best way of this not happening again, and also counseling them, is this what you want for your child? Is this the life that you want for your child, finding either being a male or female, getting pregnant, and then having no place to go, no place to live, or even a young, a baby boy? Is this what you want your son to be, a baby father at the age of 16? A baby? No. So there has to be another way. Another way. And another way is by abstaining. No. It's not that, oh yeah, go ahead, get pregnant. Isn't that the same issue? It's okay, get pregnant because you have an abortion. It's the same, reason that, you don't have to worry about having this child because there's another alternative. You don't have to have it, you can just go abort it because there's clinics all over the place. Not here, but in North America, because I come from Toronto, abortion clinics every corner.
Yes.
So abortion became a convenience, an easy fix. I don't have to worry about who I sleep with. I don't have to worry about how many times I get pregnant. I don't have to worry about this because you know what? I just go to the abortion clinic down the street and they don't ask questions and say, you're back here again?
You don't have to go all that way. There's a morning after.
That's right, morning after pill.
Is that tantamount to abortion?
For me it is, because that you've had sex and then the next day you say, oh my, I think I could get pregnant. So let me take this morning after pill just to make sure that I can rid the sperm and the egg. So you're getting rid of this baby.
You really don't know.
No, but what happens if we start getting rid of everything because we really don't know? Then,
all right, okay, I'll come back to you. I'm going to go to the father now. Sir, you didn't walk with your Bible, but I suspect you've read it enough to bring your arguments to this court.
Yes.
Where in the Bible it says abortion is bad, it's wrong? Give me your arguments based on Scripture now. We're going spiritual.
The Psalm 139, verse 13 tells us this, Michael. You formed my inmost being. You knit me in my mother's womb. I praise you, so wonderfully you made me. Wonderful are your works. I was made by you in secret. Word of God.
Okay.
Word of God. He has spoken, you know. The relevant to what sister said, the formation of a child is not the child's desire necessarily. It's the child was conceived, whether it be rape or whether it be incest, and the various arguments that are given. It is not the child's fault. It did not ask to come into being. This child came into being by the will of God.
Let me ask you this then. Let's rule out incest. Let's rule out rape.
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring in, if you may, that the doctor has a decision, child or mother. What should it be?
It can never be that for the cause of the mother, you kill the child. It has to be that you are saving the mother, and if perchance the child at the same time dies, then your cause, the cause is not to kill the child, but the cause is to really save the mother. And it's not semantics, it really is so.
I want to drill down on that a bit,
Yes.
because
Can
you
I
say it's not
interject here?
semantics.
Can I-
Yeah, just give me 1 second there. The doctor, with all his knowledge that God has given him, knows that if he tends to the mother, it's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Which should he go for?
He should go to saving the mother. He doesn't know he's going to destroy the child, but he should seek to save the mother's life. And if perchance, and hope to God it won't be, that it has to be one or the other, he still has to go to. He cannot have the purpose and the cause of his decision to be made according to either or.
But it could be a case where one is easier in the scheme of things. In other words, one is loaded. The chances are the 80% risk or the 20% risk, and then that you do a cost-benefit analysis, if you may.
No, it has got to be that you're saving this woman's life that is very, very, very much a danger. Or simply leave it up to the Lord to make him make the decision. You don't know what is going to really happen. You know, you're playing with mathematics, which is not the same as spirituality. And the mother is going to die. You've got to try to save the mother.
Just to interject on that question there, who should you save, the mother or the baby? My sister's the same age, with due respect to father, so we were quite a little age difference. When she had her first child, she was very toxic, very edemic. And first the doctor put her on bed rest at home, but he didn't believe that she was on bed rest, and then he put her in the hospital. And after still, there was, she was very, very sick. So he went to my brother-in-law, and he said to my brother-in-law, you have to tell me, who do you want me to save? Your wife or your child? And at that time, there was no ultrasound, so they didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. And my brother-in-law said, both?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, there was not even this question about abortion and was the baby alive, was the baby what have you. And the doctor said, no, you have to make a choice. You have to make a choice here. Who do you want me to save? Your wife or your baby? and my brother-in-law, when he was sharing the story with us when I was much older, he said, how could I choose? I couldn't choose. I wanted both of them. I wanted my wife and I wanted my child. So the doctor once again said to him, who do you want me to save, your wife or the baby? And my brother-in-law once again said to him, both. I want both of them. So the doctor shook his head and said, I don't know. They may both die or what have you. Well, My niece turned 50 last year. When she was born, she was a little rat. I don't remember because, as I said, the years difference. But my mother, I remember my mother saying to me later, she says, I said to the nurse, she's going to die. And the nurse said, no, she's going to live. And she did. And in fact, Julie has became a special ed teacher because that was her passion, trying to help, you know, children that were what have you. She's gone through cancer herself, and she still has survived it. But that was, you know, over 50 years ago, where the technology was not there. Now the technology is here. They can even do surgery on the baby in the mother's womb. So the doctor shouldn't really be choosing. He should be working on both to save both the mother and the child. Then, for whatever God, you know, wills that the baby should not be, okay, but he shouldn't be saying, because as soon as you start saying, okay, work on the mother, this baby gets put aside. It's like, we don't have to worry about this.
I won't pretend to be wise in the medical scheme of things, but if I suspect a doctor was to put that to me, I would say, I know my wife, I really don't know the child. I perhaps could get another child.
And what
perhaps
happened?
getting another wife, the same wife, would be a
But
little challenge.
would she be able to get pregnant again? You don't know that. No.
We could adopt.
But they have to try to save both. They
Yes,
can't
oh,
just,
indeed.
yes.
I've no doubt
But when-
doctors,
but when
that's their remit.
When as soon as you make the choice,
Yes.
as soon as you say to the doctor, save my baby and not my wife, that's where the concentration is going to be. So that concentration has to be on saving both these human lives, both of them. Doing the best you can do for saving them, whatever it takes. Not saying, okay, we don't have to work so hard on this because, you know, the husband said it doesn't matter about the baby. Let's work on them.
Father, you mentioned we should think beyond abortion. We should bring in other matters as we consider the sanctity of life. But, for example,
I think that the lifestyles of a lot of our poor people has to be called into question, and government needs to start looking at ethics and spirituality. The separation of state and church, I think it's artificial, you know. The primary should really be, what is God's will? Is God telling me, for instance, I must abort this child? Can you hear the voice of God saying, this child's life must be terminated? That a mother can make the choice, not God, but the mother can make the choice to say, the Lord has told me that I must kill that child. Can't be. Can't be.
the Lord don't speak in languages like that.
The Lord speaks very, very clearly in your heart. It's written in your heart. The love of God is written in the heart of man. You know intuitively. You know what is right and wrong. And this matter of women's rights, and there are women's rights, that's true, but on the matter of life and death, God is the author of life, as I mentioned in that Psalm 139.
And let's deal with the finishing.
Yes.
The author and the finisher. But where do you think this debate is going to go? Do you think a great impact will now make Jamaica pro-choice or pro-life?
I'm not terribly sure the way it would go, but what I was very much encouraged by, I received an invitation to go to this meeting at Convention Center.
Yes.
And there I met all these different church people that I never expected. And I was delighted to see that they had gotten together over this most important issue of death versus life. Because to me, that's where it's pivoting right now.
Yes. Do you think we'll ever reach a stage where everybody says it's all about pro-life, even if you've been raped? Do you think it ever reach that stage, Sister Joanne?
That's a hard question. I think there's always going to be that debate, always. I think maybe it's to keep us on our toes. Maybe it's the difference of opinion, the way you look at things, you know, that this is, you know, it wasn't, this baby was not made out of love, it was made out of whatever you want to call it. So no, it shouldn't be, you know, pro-life, it shouldn't be this. But it has to be, because once again, this innocent child in this mother's womb was never asked to be born, never asked to be conceived. And I have to tell you, here in Jamaica, a lot of these babies, then nobody would be here, because the women, they talk about rights and they talk about rights, but I tell you, the women that have come through our center, it was just the man, with all due respect and, you know, what have you, just finishing off whatever he wanted. She was just an instrument. So was that rape?
You know, we'd have to ask that woman.
Yeah.
She is to be,
Because-
she's the one who's violated.
Well, because I don't think the women really understand that. And I tell them this, you know, you do not have to lay down with a man just because he wants you to. You can say no. And I don't really think there's a big push on that the woman has the right to say, no, I don't want to sleep with you.
Yes. On that note, I really want to thank you both for coming here and sharing your view, hearing this side of the argument, and I trust and hope that God's will be done.
Can I just add
Sure.
a statement? You see, we've got to realize that we can't live a lawless life of promiscuity. It's barbaric. We've got to understand that self-control is an absolute necessity to be even human. You know, and to kill a defenseless child is the height of barbarism. It has no voice. That is a child, that is a person. And to just kill the child because I chose is an act of murder, you know?
Right?
Yes.
And the jury will have their decision sometime along the way, and the judge, no doubt, will judge. And we want to thank them, Father Holland, Sister Joanne, for being here on Insight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Insight. You know, for those who understand the church and spirituality, we always hear about the will of God. So I did tell them goodbye, but the conversation wasn't really over. So we've asked them to stay on. Father Holland and Sister Joanne. Let's get into some little ticklish business. You keep speaking of the innocence, Father Holland, of the child. A woman who was raped did not ask that of herself. How does she deal with that? The whole issue of rape in itself, it is a dramatic, traumatic, whatever matic you want to use, situation. And then she has to live with this by way of an offspring. What do you tell that woman? Wouldn't she be throwing things at the television right now? Say, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
She might. And rape, I would think is a most awful experience. The conception of a child, or the potential of the conception of the child, would be in her mind. But we need to understand that even in the church, a woman who has been raped, if she immediately seeks attention, the church allows and sees it as right that the sperm that is in her body now can be flushed out. And that is not abortion.
Take that slow again. They
Yes.
almost knocked me off my chair here. If it's immediate, but we have a conflict here. Finally got father and sister to fight. She made mention, and I made mention of the morning after pill, or you don't know if you're pregnant, but you could be. By taking it, it would mean that it's a kind of an abortion, if I were to quote her correctly. But you're saying in that circumstance where she's being raped, it can be flushed out, but it's not called abortion. Is there a butting of the heads there? Is there some disagreement going on in terms of the clarification? How do I get around this? Who's take it, somebody? I don't understand.
Sister, you're smiling. Go ahead.
Well, rape is an ugly thing. And I've never been raped, but I have been attacked. And that in itself, it took me quite a while to get over. I was young, and it was just when I was coming home from, my background is nursing, by the way. I was coming back home from an evening shift, and because we had had an emergency at the hospital, and it was one of my children there, because I worked at hospital for sick children in Toronto. I never could say, well, my shift is over, I have to leave, the other nurses will take over, especially when the parents are there and they need, they know you better than anybody. So I was late getting home, and it was dark. Anyways, to make a long story short, I was attacked. And that in itself, it took me quite a while to get over. But by the grace of God, with the love of my parents and friends, and yes, guidance from one of my doctors, a doctor of mine, I was able to overcome. And overcome to the point that it didn't, excuse me, I even forgave the man. I don't know who he was, but I forgave him, so I thought I can continue on. So I can just imagine now a woman that has even been beyond the attack. But at the same point, she needs counseling. So if you're going to be so worried about if she's pregnant or not, she's going to be needing counseling for 2 different episodes. One for the rape, and then one for losing that. Yes. So you have then all of a sudden not just one item that you have to deal with, but 2. And unfortunately, this is what happens. You forget about the rape and you worry about the pregnancy, so you just, slough that off. And then the woman, it's, well, you're fine now. You know what? Go and continue.
But you're not.
You're not. You're not.
Yes.
You still have to deal with both of them.
Would you agree with the flushing out of the sperm?
No. No. Because I still think that with the counseling, the flushing out of the sperm, in the poor countries, I have to tell you, in Jamaica, who's going to counsel this young girl then once she flushes out this sperm, once she tries to get over this rape? She's going to be forgotten in the system. Because once she goes, I don't know how they get the morning after pill here. In Toronto, I knew because I worked it. I finished with them when I left sick kids, I went to public health, and we had clinics there, and just young girls would just come in and say, I had sex last night and I don't know if I'm pregnant or not, so give me the morning after pill. And I have to tell you, the first time I worked this clinic, I said, the morning what pill?
Yes, yeah.
And they said, well, you give up because it was free. They didn't have to pay for it in Toronto. And they could be underage, and they didn't have to tell their parents. And it was just given to them. I didn't work that clinic. My colleagues then took over because I had a problem about just handing out these pills, okay, with no counseling. Because the doctor said to me, no, you just give it and you don't ask no questions. I said, but shouldn't she be counseled? Shouldn't she be taught to? She said, no, that's not our concern. And this is in Toronto, big city. So you can, here we are in Jamaica now. They don't have the facilities that Toronto has. So you're going to be handing out this pill just left, right, and center. And where are these young girls going to get the money then to buy? Because I don't think here it's free. You have to pay for it.
I suspect
so. How are they going to pay for it?
Question. Help me thought that. You said the church here would facilitate that, would understand that. What aspect of the policies that would facilitate that?
Hospitals, the Catholic hospitals, the other hospitals also. The whole matter of morning after pill, I have no idea what's the availability in the church. But the matter is that at the point of rape, the sperm and the ovum have not connected, if it will connect at all. And they're always there. I don't know the exact hour or exact time if there's such a thing, but I know it is so in the church,
Yes.
that you can have the removal of the sperm that's in the woman's body. There's a matter I wanted to bring also, not to escape the argument, but in his paper last week at Parliament, this doctor indicated that 95% of the abortions that take place has nothing to do with rape or incest.
Well, I suspect it's a choice, a pro-choice.
But the pro-choice attitude or intention is looking at an exception to make it into a rule. And that's very, very, very dangerous.
Yes.
And if you have pro-choice, I might not be here, you might not be here.
Yes.
A woman is pregnant, whether married or not married or whatever, a choice can be made at that particular time. I will have this child or not have this child, which is very, 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 very dangerous.
We'll have to take a break, Father, and we'll be right back on Insight with more Father Holong and Sister Joanne. Welcome back to Insight, getting some insights into abortion and I can't say the church's view, could I? I mean, you're from what denomination, sir? Let's get some things out of the way here.
Yes, Roman Catholic.
You're Roman
yes.
Catholic.
Yes.
And you would also Roman Catholic.
Cradle. I was born Roman Catholic.
You were born Roman.
Yeah.
I was not, I was Buddhist.
You were Buddhist.
Yes.
Okay, and you became a Roman Catholic along the way. All right. Let's take a look at sneaking to your lives. Help me, Father. You were Buddhist first. Where were you born?
I was born in Richmond, St. Mary, out in the bushes by a river.
By a river.
Yeah.
You became a Buddhist?
Yes.
How so?
My mother was Buddhist. She was from China. Yes, my father was philosophically a Confucianist.
Okay, and that's out of China as well.
Yes, that's right.
We do that. So what happened to their offspring? You sprang away.
Well, my mom actually was a very prayerful woman. She made us meditate quite a bit, like on the river, on the wind, the mystery of the wind, the earth. How can it possibly bring forth so many different types of plants and food types and so forth, and that we're to keep silent and learn the beauty of it and so forth. So she brought up us that way, and sometimes she would take us out in the morning, my sister and myself, and we would just simply pray. She would make us put our hands on the earth to feel the warmth of it, and it was really very beautiful. And I think out of that, there was this sense of respect for nature and respect for God, and a desire for us really to listen to other voices than just what's the distractions outside our own voices, and try to hear that voice that is so beautiful and powerful, which is God's voice.
Well, let's get back to your biological sister. I see you have a church sister with you, but you have a sister or had a sister.
I have two sisters, actually.
Two sisters. And
Right.
where are they, sir? We're exposing Father Holong now. We've always seen you with missionaries of the poor. But
Right.
What's your support system by way of family?
They married men from overseas,
Oh, yeah.
so they've gone to them, and but in Jamaica I just found incredible beauty of the people, tremendous sense of humor and wit and kindness. The foundation of the Jamaican civilization is really Christian. The kindness, talking about the Lord, the Bible, I found it really fascinating.
Well, you didn't get married and you didn't go anywhere.
I got married to God.
Married to God. Okay. And you have no children?
I have many.
Well, biological.
Yeah. It's very interesting because, Mike, when people walk along the streets, and I walk along, let us say I'm in Southside Ghetto and so forth, people look at me and they call me father.
Yes.
And I know it is not just a clerical title.
Yes.
There's a feeling or a resonance between us, intuition, that I am your father.
In Jamaica, there's a difference between father, which is father Hola, and father, which is, you know, I feel your connection to
Yes,
me.
yes.
Yes. You have chosen this life. Were there other things that you could have done that you... What school did you go to?
St. George's to begin with, and then later on I went to seminary in Massachusetts. So I studied at Western College, School of Theology and Philosophy. Did a degree at Boston College, got a BA, then did a philosophy, master's degree, then a master's degree in literature as well, and then did a doctorate in humanities, psychology and literature and so forth.
And have you ever been to China?
Passed through, unfortunately only passed through. Yes, but I met my half-brother, my father's half-brother there.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you pass through China? It's such a far place to go to pass through.
Well, we have missions, Michael, all over the world. From Jamaica, Jamaica is the origin of it, but Jamaica was such a international country. I met Chinese here, of course, and so forth. So we began to open missions, which we have like in Kenya and Uganda. We're taking homeless and destitute people. And we have brothers there who are missionaries of the poor originating from Jamaica. Then we opened a place in Indonesia, which is a Muslim country. And we take in again little kids who are homeless and destitute. Philippines also, which is Far East. We have quite a few homes there for cripples and old men and old women. All of this is done free of cost.
Okay.
Right.
Let me zero in a little bit on my friend from TO, Toronto. All right, if you ask anybody from Toronto, how quickly can they tell you 20 minutes? It seems to be a 20 minutes to everywhere in Toronto. What happened along your pathway? You said you were born a Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
That means you hardly had any influence otherwise, so you
That's
had
right.
to become a Roman Catholic. Is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, for me, it was good. That's the way I was brought up. I wasn't born in Toronto. I was born in Italy.
In Italy?
Yes, yes, in the south, in the poor part. And then my dad first immigrated to Toronto, and then he brought the family over 2 years later. You know, but I was brought up in Toronto. We immigrated to Toronto when I was 4, so you know, but in a very strict Italian family, and Catholic.
Yes.
My mother would every Sunday would walk us to church. My dad didn't drive, so we had to walk. And catechism was every Saturday because she didn't know about Catholic schools and not Catholic schools at that time. But in the house, my mother, you know, we didn't have a Bible per se, but she lived the Bible. You know, she believed that, you know, and it's true. You may know the Bible in and out and you can quote everything, but if you don't live it, because that's what people see first, how you live it. And my mother lived it. She was a very kind, generous woman, very generous. She would take the coat off her back to give it to somebody else.
How did you end up here in Jamaica?
Father came to Toronto to promote one of his productions.
Okay.
And after the Mass, he just invited, come to Jamaica and help us to take care of the poor. And even though my church was packed, I took it personally that he was inviting me to come here. But at that time I couldn't travel because I was taking care of my parents who were both, my mother had her heart and stroke and my dad a heart attack. But it stayed in my head. It just stayed in my head. And so then he came to do also a retreat at the church I belonged to in Toronto. And once again, he put that out there. And once again, I thought, my gosh, the Lord is talking to me. That he wants me to go. So the first opportunity I had, which was in 2005, because my mom had passed away then, but my dad couldn't live on his own with me while I worked. So I had to make the decision of putting him in a nursing home. I was able to travel. And the first place I traveled to was Kingston, Jamaica.
Okay. So you've been here since?
The first time I came down here was in April of 2005.
Yes.
And I was a volunteer.
Okay.
And then in 2007, my dad passed away, and Father approached me, because that was the beginnings of the talks on abortion.
Yes.
And one of the parliamentarians had said to Father, you know, you're talking all this talk, but you haven't given any alternative to these women to do. And Holy Innocent was born through that. He prayed on it, and that's what the Spirit told him.
Okay.
Offer them a home, and that's where he approached me on that, as a layperson at first.
Yes.
And he gave me time to think, and I prayed on it, but I knew that this is where God wanted me to serve him also. Because even though I was a laywoman in Toronto, the church was very important to me. And God,
help me when you say a laywoman. I've always had this vision.
I wasn't in religious life. I wasn't a nun. As I said, I was a nurse. That was my background. I worked first at sick children, the hospital for sick children, because children have always been my passion, always.
Yes.
And then after I left sick children, I went into public health. And once again, in public health, there's a whole array of things that you do. I worked in the schools, all ages. I also visited mothers who had their babies after the fact. We counseled before the fact. So there was a whole range of things that public health encompassed.
Passion for children didn't lead you to have any for yourself?
Oh, I wanted children, but as I said, even though I may have been brought up in Toronto, I was brought up in a very strict Italian family. And in my family, it was marriage, then children. Not children before marriage.
Yes.
Oh, no. In fact, once my brother said to me, you love children, why don't you just get pregnant? And my mother slapped him.
Well, why didn't you get married?
No, because she said, you never, because I'm the youngest in the family, and she said, you do not talk to your younger sister like that. Just go get pregnant, So he never said that again. No, that's the way I was brought up. And friends asked me that, because they knew I loved children. Why don't you just have a baby? No, I just...
Never considered getting married?
Oh, yes, but God never sent me a man. And I would say to the Lord, listen, send me a man so I can have my babies. But he had other plans, obviously.
Yes.
Because after Father asked me to take care of Holy Innocent as a laywoman, Father brought the sisterhood into being. And now I have many daughters.
There we go.
So there's my children.
Father, I knew you as a Jesuit priest. You indicated to me that you're no longer Jesuit?
No, no.
What's that? Help us non-Catholic types.
Well,
what does that represent? What does that mean?
I had vows in the Jesuits. You take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And the Lord was calling me. I was heading towards academics. I taught at UWI, and I taught also at Boston College. But I felt, nah, this is not what it means to serve the Lord in full. And I looked at the scriptures over and over, and it was always the Lord taking care of the poorest and the most forgotten and rejected of people. And I felt that I had to do that. So I left academics after these extensive years of teaching and began Missionaries of the Poor.
So that you could not be a Jesuit while you do that?
No, it's a different charisma. Jesuits are really education. Think of that. High school and universities and so forth.
Okay.
And I taught both at UWI and Boston College. However, this work with the homeless and destitute is...
Do you renounce your vows as a result of that?
We actually transferred our vows.
Transferred your vows?
Yeah, vows to Missionaries of the Poor.
So you're still the chastity, you still have to live a celibate life, you still just deal with the poor and drill down.
Right. We have a fourth vow now of free service to the homeless and destitute. So poverty, chastity, obedience, and free service to the poorest.
What's the ugliest thing that has happened that always comes to your mind when you have lived among the poor and see? What is it that sticks in your craw?
The death of the women at Eventide Home. 155 women were burned to death in a condemned home that was owned by the government. And I remember driving to the university at that time and saying, I've got an obligation to go to the university. I can't go to the home where these women were killed in the fire. And I found I had to go. And I said, no, I can't have a mixed way of living. You have to choose one or the other. And at that time, the Lord spoke to me and said, if Jesus were here today, he would choose the homeless and destitute. And so I went to the home, which we had been visiting. A few of us had been visiting. And I said, yeah, the Lord has spoken. So I got permission from the Archbishop Samuel Carter at that time and began Missionaries of the Poor.
And how many years has this been?
38 years.
38 years?
Yes.
Wow, you're aging me, sir, because I recall going down to Eventide Home on that morning.
Did you?
Yes, yes, on Sly Pen Road.
Sly Pen Road,
yes,
exactly.
Yes, beside the clinic.
Yeah.
Yes, where it's just burnt.
Yes.
Burnt. But from the ashes rose, and we built a new place.
Yes.
Beside
Yes.
St. Joseph's Hospital.
That's right.
Cluster C, our
Yes.
Jarglina Communications Group involved with that.
Right,
And,
right.
Home
Golden
Around
Age, yeah.
is the golden home age, and have you ever been there? Have you ever
Oh, yes.
see them?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
But we now have 7 homes in Kingston for the crippled and
Yes.
elderly, people with HIV, AIDS, Down syndrome, who are homeless. And they're all living with us free of cost. And then sisters have this beautiful home at Holy Innocents.
So I really want to thank you, not just for your posture and what you're dealing with, but the life that you choose to live. And I suspect it makes a big thing if I can help somebody as I pass along.
Yes.
My living will not be in vain.
Right.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And there's hoping that we'll meet again soon and discuss other things apart from abortion, because there's so much more to life, isn't there?
What about the music?
Oh, you and your plays. Very nice. Nice touch. Touche. Thank you, Father Long and
Thank you.
Sister John. And that will be it for Insight Today. Pleasant.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.